the mega India-US defense deal. Last-minute negotiations for jet engines. India-US talk fighter jet engine manufacturing in India. GE-414 engine deal during Modi-Biden summit. US fighter jet engines to be made in India. Deal takes India-US ties to a new level. That's our top focus on India First. Fighter jet engines have been India's Achilles heel since the HF-24, Hindustan Fighter 24 Marut experience in the 1960s. The twin-engine fighter jet was found to be underpowered. The light combat aircraft is powered by GE-414 engines, but India is looking at the GE-414 engines for LCA Mark II and for the fifth-generation fighter jet. Now, should this deal be inked during the Modi-Biden summit, what does it mean? What are its ramifications? We get you the details. I'm Gaurav Sawant as always. Let's get started with the headlines at 10. Big claim by former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey says Indian government threatened to shut Twitter down during the farmers' protests. Centre calls it an outright lie, says toolkit conspiracy by the Congress. Orange alert issued for cyclone Biparjoy. The severe cyclonic storm will make landfall in Kutch on the 15th of June. 21,000 people have been evacuated in Gujarat. 69 trains cancelled. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lashes out at the opposition at the Rozgar Mela, compares rate card party versus safeguard party, also launches the Parivarvad attack on opposition parties. Violence, clashes and showdown over panchayat polls in Bengal. Fresh clashes erupt in Bardhaman and South 24 Parganas. BJP versus ally Shinde Sena in Maharashtra over newspaper ad showing Eknath Shinde as chosen chief minister in 2024. Shinde Sena denies printing the ad, says Shinde supporter published it. The General Electric 414 fighter jet engines have been talked about for over a decade now for the light combat aircraft Mark II. Will the fighter jet engines finally be manufactured in India for the Indian Air Force next generation and future generation fighter jets? Will there also be transfer of technology and co-production of these jet engines that power the FA-18 Super Hornets, the Growlers and Sweden's Saab Gripens? India and the US have been negotiating this deal. It's likely to be inked during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upcoming visit to the United States of America. India and the US are all set to ink a landmark agreement for the manufacture of the General Electric 414 fighter jet engines in India. India's indigenous light combat aircraft is currently powered by the GE-414 engine, and New Delhi and Washington DC have been negotiating for the more advanced GE-414 engines to power the LCA Mark II and the advanced fifth generation medium combat aircraft.
We established an ambitious new roadmap for defense industrial cooperation, which will fast-track high-priority co-development and co-production projects.
In January, the White House had confirmed receiving an application from General Electric to collaborate in the manufacturing of fighter jet engines in India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the US President Joe Biden had both pushed for the initiative on critical and emerging technologies, or ICET, and negotiations are being held between India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and his US counterpart Jake Sullivan. The GE-414 engine currently powers the FA-18 Super Hornets and Sweden's Saab Gripen fighter jets. The General Electric company says both South Korea and India's Hindustan Aeronautics Limited are working to acquire the GE-414 engine.
Having a tie-up for a good engine technology is something we've been looking for a while. And this is going to be a big game changer because your subsequent aeroplane design can be based on this particular engine, which is reliable, fuel efficient, and can take the aeroplane to higher Mach number speeds.
The deal, once inked, goes to the US Congress for approval. In fact, the GE-414 engine had been shortlisted for Hindustan Aeronautics Limited's LCA Mark II ever since 2010. Analysts say initially components are likely to be manufactured in India, but New Delhi is looking at manufacturing the entire engine in India, not just for use by the Indian Air Force in India, but also look at possible upgrade and export of future engines. Fighter jet engines have been India's Achilles heel since the failure of the Hindustan Fighter 24 Marut experiment. The twin engines on the Hindustan Fighter Marut were found to be underpowered for India's first attempt at manufacturing supersonic fighter jets. The indigenous Kaveri engine remains work in progress. The LCA is currently powered by the GE-414 engine, but the LCA Mark II, the AMCA, and the Ghatak unmanned combat aerial vehicles are likely to be powered by the more powerful GE-414 engines that boast of rapid engine throttle response, extra thrust, ready on demand, maximized time on wing, easier maintenance, and lower life cycle cost. The move is also being seen as an important step to take the India-US relationship to the next level and gradually wean India away from the Russian arms market. Bureau Report, India Today. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met Prime Minister Narendra Modi and briefed him on the Prime Minister's upcoming visit to the United States of America and the progress of various bilateral negotiations and agreements. The Prime Minister tweeted to say that the two reviewed the progress of India-US initiatives on technology. The Prime Minister expressed satisfaction at the growing and deepening India-US comprehensive global strategic partnership. India and the US have been focusing on critical and emerging technologies. The Prime Minister also said he looks forward to meeting US President Joe Biden during his upcoming visit to the United States of America, where he would be meeting the US President. Now, the big question is, how significant are these steps? How crucial is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upcoming visit to the United States of America and his meeting the US President Joe Biden? Joining me on India First is Ambassador Meera Shankar, former Indian ambassador to the United States. Group Captain Augustine Vinod is a former Mirage fighter jet pilot. Also with me is India Today's Shiv Arur. But I want to begin by asking you, Group Captain Vinod, how crucial, according to you, is the GE-414 deal for the IAF and for India's future fighter jet programs?
Wonderful question. And as you covered earlier in the prelude to this discussion, engine remains the heart of the system. I mean, the endeavor that you talked about, the HF-24 Marut, that had an engine called Bristol Orpheus 70101 and 105. Not many people know, same engine, the 70101 and 105s, powered the Kiran Mark II.
And the Kiran Mark II, yeah.
They powered the fallen Nats, the Ajits thereafter, Harrier family, And also it was the third engine on top of the Fairchild
The
packet, which is
packets.
right on top. So it was the same engine, Bristol Orpheus 70. I flew that engine, for the engine I swear by, which was also powering HF-24 Marut, but it didn't have an afterburner.
Yes.
And design, even today, if you look at HF-24 Marut from in the frontal face of HF-24 Marut, it looks exactly like a Mirage 2000 or maybe a shade better in aerodynamics. But the entire endeavor of ours failed badly because of a bad engine. Now let's come to General Electric. General Electric have been making only engines, so they are like the Martin Bakers of ejection seat. And they are not only in the military space, in the commercial space, the Airbus uses General Electric's CFM LEAP engine, which most of the
Okay.
Indigo and other companies fly. In the military space, Gaurav, the same engine we are using in Apache. That is Tango 700 and Tango 901, T901 and T700. F110 is the engine made by General Electric, powers the F-15 Strike Eagle. F414, like you correctly covered, is powering the Super Hornets, or also on the F117.
Yes.
Apart from other engines,
So
other
you think it's
aeroplanes
crucial? Okay, Ambassador Shankar, is this a new high in India-US relationship? Does this indicate deepening of trust if the US, if it's finally transferring technology to manufacture fighter jet engines?
Certainly. I think, we've had the defense technology and trade initiative since President Obama's time, where both countries determined that they were going to not just sell, India was not just going to buy, but that they would look at joint research, joint development, and co-production of defense equipment. But it really didn't take off. There were some pilot projects which were done, but which were of a very, very minor nature.
Yes.
And, didn't show enough ambition. I think there were still hesitations within the US about the extent to which they should go in terms of technology transfer to India. So I would say that if now we are really looking at GE producing their 414 engine in India, it would mark a significant upgrade of the strategic partnership. You were saying jet engine has been India's Achilles heel. The point is that there are very few countries in the world actually which produce jet engines.
True.
And if this deal materializes, then we would be one of those who would be producing jet engines here, even though it would be not on our technology, but on technology provided by the United States.
Interesting you should mention that, ma'am. And, Group Captain Vinod, what does this then mean for the indigenous Kaveri engine?
It's a good question. Let me, for the sake of our viewers, and make this interesting, discussion more interesting. Russians, we've been flying Russians in a Russian engine for a while, isn't it? But even Russians stole the metallurgy from Rolls-Royce. It's a very famous incident which happened in the late 40s. Over a snooker game, Russian engineers were losing of a snooker game. The Rolls-Royce chairman invited the Russians to Rolls-Royce factory just to have a look-see.
Since time, sir, since time is at a premium right now, and I want to quickly bring
I'll keep it short.
Yes, I want to know about the Kaveri engine. The Kaveri engine.
Yeah, no, I'm coming to that. So what happens is, these guys went with the rubber sole and got the metallurgy for both the turbine and the air intake. So Kaveri engine, where does Kaveri engine suffer today is, I was associated with the engineers for a while. The Kaveri engine suffers because of the metallurgy that it involves both in the turbine, and today the turbine is very highly machined part, and also the compressor. So that is where like ma'am covered, very few companies have mastered this, and everything if you go back, it flows from the Rolls-Royce metallurgy. Over to you.
Right. Shiv, you've been talking to your sources in the Indian Air Force. How are they looking at it? Because the Kaveri engine and the dreams that were associated with it, they haven't taken off. The GE-414 engine, yes, for LCA, but for LCA Mark II and for AMCA and for the Ghatak UCAVs.
Gaurav, there's no doubt that this is a very, very significant deal. I remember reporting about the GE F414 engine being chosen by the Indian Air Force back in 2011, 2012, if I'm not mistaken. So that gives you a sense of how long the wheels of defense procurement have actually taken for this deal to finally come through. Now, the F414 is a very well-regarded jet engine for fighter aircraft. It's the engine that powers the F-18 Super Hornet, which is a fighter that has been in contention, for Indian deals for many, many years. It's also an engine that will now go on to power the Indian LCA Tejas, the Mark II variant, also the futuristic fifth-generation concept aircraft of India called the AMCA, and then probably even unmanned aircraft that India has currently in development. I somehow, this is going to be a big deal because the F414 is going to be made here in India under license, Gaurav. And, India's lack of an indigenous jet engine is something that gives me some mixed feelings, because this may be a very big deal. There are going to be many, spillover benefits for industry. India finally gets to realize many aviation dreams that have been slow, owing to the lack of an engine. But my mixed feelings stem from the fact that it comes as a sort of bitter reminder of the fact that India's very own quest for a jet engine, called the Project Kaveri, has not borne any fruit. The Kaveri has meandered aimlessly for decades together without producing, an engine of optimal performance for the Indian military. It's been rejected over and over again because it simply hasn't met the kind of requirements the Indian military had, and therefore we were forced to look abroad for it. Money going into another economy, for our military needs, is the oldest story in the book as far as Indian defense procurement is concerned. But all those things aside, it's still a very big deal. The engines will be made here.
Deal, you're
there will be lots of jobs. There'll be a lot of employment generation. It gives India's military planners and designers an engine around which to design more future aircraft. And it also has many other spillover benefits.
Absolutely.
So overall, a really
Ambassador Shankar, is this also calculated, this American move, or to wean India away from dependence on Russian military hardware?
I think that is part of the objective, because there has been concern over the differences with regard to Ukraine, and an understanding also of the strategic imperatives which underlie India's policy on Ukraine, because 60% of our existing defense equipment is still of Russian origin. So in the debates in Congress which have taken place on this issue, where members of Congress and others have expressed concern, there have also been remarks that the US needs to do more with India, provide it more access to defense equipment and technology, so as to reduce India's dependence on Russia. Now, from our point of view, that is not the objective, but our point of view is to upgrade our own technical capacities. And this will certainly help, because one of the issues with the light combat aircraft has been that the engine is not seen as powerful enough. And this would be a far more powerful, a far more fuel-efficient engine, which will therefore lead to cost efficiency as well in its operations. I would also mention one other thing which will be of significance. They're also talking of cooperating in quantum computing, though no specifics have emerged. But under the initiative on critical and emerging technologies, there is likely to be announcement of a major investment by the US company Micron for producing semiconductors in India. Now, if you look at it, that has also been one of the major objectives.
Yes.
Because semiconductors underlie all technologies, and we don't have our own production capacities.
But will there be a time frame for this, or is this just a carrot that's being dangled in a way also to checkmate China or democracies coming together? Will it actually happen? But for the moment, if I want to stick to the Russia issue, Group Captain Vinod, does this put India in a spot? Either choose Russian technology or American technology, Russian military hardware or American hardware, or are we looking at taking the best technology that's available and make in India, whether it's engines for AMCA or for Ghataks or for UCAVs in future?
Since I've flown both the engines, I can tell you very clearly, Gaurav, two things. First and foremost is this engine. I mean, the question that you asked earlier. GE-414, I mean, I hate to say it, could be a Kaveri killer as well. Because we may have to shelve we may have to probably shelve the Kaveri endeavor completely because, like Shiv said, it hasn't taken off much. So that is a little bit of a, I mean, I feel a little bad about it, but time will tell. But most importantly, Russian engines have very short life cycle, whereas Western engines have a very long life cycle. So the life cycle cost is very, very low when you're operating a Western engine. Let me also tell you, say Mirage, which is right behind me, we change engine in less than 1 hour. In a TRS, in a turnaround servicing, we just take the engine down, put another engine and go for another mission without doing a test. Whereas in a MiG-21, it takes 15 days. Or a MiG-27, MiG-23, which used to take more time because we have to split the aeroplane in two, take the engine out, put it in a test bed, run it, and it is a nightmare. So Russian engine and Western engine, absolutely no comparison at all. It is not an apples to apples comparison. Even the most modern Su-30 engine is not very easy or good to handle. I'm totally happy that it is a Western technology.
Ambassador Shankar, how much of this is aimed at China? How would China be viewing the India-US summit?
I think both countries are concerned about China's increasingly aggressive behavior in the Indo-Pacific region, and the possibility that this can raise of conflict. You know, we have seen intrusions in our border areas, and talks are still going on to resolve this and return to the status quo. The US recently has experienced two incidents. One where a Chinese ship cut across their ship very close, and another, Canadian and US ships were passing through, and another where a Chinese fighter jet, actually a plane, buzzed their plane very close. And the Chinese did not respond to request for talks by the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to try to avert any inadvertent escalation or spiraling, which could lead to a conflict which neither side wants. Because the US policy towards China is, they say, to cooperate where they can and to compete vigorously with China, but at the same time to avoid conflict.
But the US as of now is making all the right noises. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, he's appreciated US ties with India. He hailed this as a very important partnership between the two countries. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in the United States on the 21st of June, which is also International Day for Yoga. Let's now bring you this latest ground report.
US President Joe Biden is pulling no stops in the welcome planned for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is set to reach American shores on June 21st. Prime Minister Modi will get the red carpet along with a guard of honor. The US President and the First Lady will host a state dinner for Prime Minister Modi on June 22nd. Modi will be addressing the US Congress, the only Indian Prime Minister to do so twice. Expectations are high ahead of the Prime Minister's visit. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called America's ties with India a unique connection and highlighted the importance of partnership between the two countries.
Expressing at the heart of the strategic relationship between our countries are economic ties. And under the leadership of President Biden and Prime Minister Modi and private sector leaders in this room tonight and beyond, it is growing stronger by the day. We certainly have work to do to advance transparency, to promote market access, to strengthen our democracies, to unleash the full potential of our people. But the trajectory of this partnership is unmistakable, and it is filled with promise.
Blinken recalled how Biden had termed ties with India as a defining relationship of the 21st century. Recently, the White House had lauded India for being a vibrant democracy.
The President's looking forward very much to having Prime Minister Modi here to talk about all those issues and to advance and deepen that partnership and that friendship. India is a vibrant democracy. Anybody that happens to go to New Delhi can see that for themselves, and certainly. I would expect that the strength and health of democratic institutions will be part of the discussion.
US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is currently in India to finalize the agreements to be sealed during the big meet in Washington. Sullivan said that Prime Minister's visit will further boost India-US partnership.
The vision is good, it's important, but ultimately it is realizing that vision through the kinds of practical cooperation among our private sectors, our scientists, our research academies, our students, and yes, in important respects, our governments. And in 6 short months, I think we are well underway to fulfilling the vision that Prime Minister Modi and President Biden set out.
Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US amid the raging war in Ukraine will further cement India's standing on the global stage. Bureau Report, India Today.
Here from Bangalore on a Sunday morning.
This is how Dutch vlogger Petro Mota kicked off his Bengaluru edition with much enthusiasm and all smiles.
Namaskar. Namaste. Namaskar. Yeah, namaskar. Hello. Hello. What's going on, sir? Could you please let go of my hand?
Moments later, in a shocking turn of events, he was manhandled rudely by a shopkeeper in the city's Chickpet area. Pedro's arm was twisted even as he respectfully greeted the vendor,
Namaste. Namaskar.
Nawab Hayat Sharif, with a namaskara.
What's going on, sir? Could you please let go of my hand? Sir, could you please? Sir, stop. Sir, sir, Jesus Christ, let go of my hand, man.
Pedro managed to escape unhurt from the clutches of Sharif, who has now been arrested by the Bengaluru police.
Guy was holding on to my thumb, man. I'm pulling it. Jesus Christ. I shit you not, trying to break my finger, bro. My thumb. Jesus Christ.
Pedro is later seen in the vlog greeting a group of people with chants of Jai Shri Ram.
Oh, I can see. Namaste. Jai Shri Ram. It makes me happy to see smiling faces. Trust me, today I'm very happy with smiling faces. Have a good day. What's going on, sir?
Activist Brinda Adige has condemned the assault on Pedro, calling it totally unacceptable.
This is absolutely unacceptable, maligning the image of Bengaluru because of a blogger who's going around talking about Bengaluru, its geography, its people, and whatever is happening.